Today we're talking about the latest episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 10, The Passenger. Hello everyone, my name is Captain Jack and welcome to Star Wars Now. We're back once again this week to discuss the latest episode of the brand new Mandalorian season we've got this year. Obviously today's episode is Chapter 10, The Passenger. This episode is written by Jon Favreau, who's obviously the series executive producer and kind of the showrunner of the whole thing, but the episode is directed by Peyton Reed, who has directed an episode before. Now, the official description of this episode, which we got a couple of days ago, it says, "The Mandalorian must ferry a passenger with precious cargo on a risky journey." Immediately, many of us jumped to the assumption that he'd be on that boat we've seen in the trailer, ferrying someone around. However, as you may know if you've watched this episode, that's not exactly how things went down, and this episode is a little bit different to what many of us, I think, were expecting. Anyway, we can discuss that in great detail today, and talk about my review in general. If you are new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from myself and the team here at Star Wars Now. We're covering the latest from the Star Wars universe, including The Mandalorian and much, much more. As a quick warning, we will be discussing spoilers for Chapter 10 in this review, so if you haven't seen it yet, turn away now and come back later. So in general, this episode operated pretty well. The whole premise is the Mandalorian escorting this woman with her eggs to another planet at sublight speed. But realistically, the episode starts out, and I think a lot of us, after watching the big reveal of Boba Fett at the end of Chapter 9, this episode started out on Tatooine with Mando on his speeder bike, going back to Mos Eisley, trying to go back to the Razor Crest and also Pelimoto to basically link back up and continue his journey. However, some bounty hunters, or sort of just like thieves in general, try stopping him, and the speeder bike tips over, etc. Really make a reference to securing the child. This isn't really explored much more, nor is it heavily implied what they're doing. However, I think you can make the assumption these guys are most likely sent by Moff Gideon or, other Imperials, etc. to secure the child. One of them even makes a reference to securing the child. They know what it is, they know what they're doing. Most likely they've been sent by Moff Gideon to secure the child from Mandalorian, and they're tracking around system by system. Obviously, it makes sense. Why would Moff Gideon devote more of his forces where he could just send bounty hunters after the Mandalorian to secure the child, what he actually wants? So most likely that's what they're doing. They do stop him there. The armor gets damaged. There is a fantastic kill by the Mandalorian where he activates a jetpack and kills someone using that while Baby Yoda or the child is just watching there. I can't help at this point. I keep wanting to call him Baby Yoda even though he's called the child because everybody on the internet calls it Baby Yoda. But yeah, it's still pretty cool. Eventually returning to Mos Eisley, obviously they link back up with Pelimoto, who's actually, trading with this alien species. At the point they go to the hangar, they link up with this frog lady as she's being nicknamed. There's no official name for this character yet. However, the body of the frog lady is played by actress Misty Rosa, while the voice of it is actually provided by D. Bradley Baker, who obviously voiced for Clone Troopers in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and many other roles throughout Star Wars and also sci-fi itself. This episode overall actually had some great cameo appearances. We also had Dave Filoni back as Trapper Wolf, the X-Wing pilot. He first appeared in Season 1 of The Mandalorian. He's back once again. Love seeing him in there, especially in an X-Wing uniform and the X-Wing itself. There's a great picture of him with a rifle in the X-Wing cockpit. I'll check it on screen now. It actually looks amazing. Anyway, the two set off into space. Eventually, they do get intercepted by the X-Wings here. And, there's this whole sequence of, obviously the Mandalorian was previously involved in the fact, the prison transport thing, which just took place in Chapter 6 of Season 1. That whole deal there, the X-Wings were a little bit pissed about it, but at the end it's revealed they kind of just wanted to thank him for that in a way, because he did actually protect the New Republic officer on board, and they actually give that New Republic officer a name, so it's something we can go back and check at a later date. So it's pretty interesting then how it goes down. Ultimately, it does crash on this ice planet. Now, it's revealed that these giant spiders live on there. Now, I thought this was a connection to Star Wars Rebels in a way. For those who've watched Star Wars Rebels, particularly at Chopper Base on Atollon, basically, they had these spiders here at one point. There was a whole episode where Kanan and the Ghost Crew were overwhelmed by these things, and I think Ezra and Kanan tried connecting with them. Eventually they could connect with them. I was thinking the child might try something with the Force, but obviously they're not strong enough yet to try and do that, so that is something to take into account. Overall this episode, I felt like it was pretty filler in a way. But then again, you kind of have to think about it. The Mandalorian is like a comic book story in a way. And I feel like we've been treated very well with Episode 1 being that big reveal, all the action sequences of Cobb Vanth, the Krayt Dragon. Episode 2 had to basically step off the gas a little bit and, try and pause down. Ultimately, The Mandalorian is an episodic adventure. It's still a show of a story that comes in between the adventures. It's kind of structured like a comic book at the end of the day. When you look at it, the plotline is incredibly simplistic in a way. The Mando's basically got to return the child to his origin, but on the way he's going to get sidetracked with other things. I think ultimately we as viewers are slightly spoiled of how much plot occurred in the first few episodes of the series and also season 2 so far. You think episode 1 of season 2 or chapter 9 had a lot of plot in it and a lot of development for Cobb Vanth, the big reveal at Boba at the end, we got very hyped up. So when episode 2 or chapter 10 in this case is slowing down and acts more as a filler episode, I think it leaves a little bit of us with a little bit of disappointment in a way. I mean, I ended this episode thinking, I'm not totally like, going to be raving to the next episode. I was hoping we might see Sasha Banks in this episode, and we might see, the reveal of a ferry, etc. However, that looks like it's going to be next episode. I'm all for that in a way. If it's dragging out a little bit more and it makes sense, then yeah, that's happy with it. Just don't waste my time in a way. But overall, this was an enjoyable episode. The bits of the X-Wings up there, it made sense. But I was hoping to see Boba Fett again. Whether he'll show up at some point, I don't know. I feel like we're going to have to make a separate video discussing that and whether Fett will actually turn up at some point, because I think that's on a lot of people's minds right now, whether he's actually going to appear, but we'll have to check that out at another point. Speaking about the New Republic pilots, we can definitely see, when they say these are trying times. The New Republic has obviously just emerged after the shattering of the Galactic Empire. They've established themselves and they're trying to assert their control over the galaxy. The pilot even says himself, these are desperate times, etc., or trying times is his exact words. So therefore, they're out here patrolling the Outer Rim. And you see on the Mandalorian's map, when he's in the Razor Crest, they really are on the Outer Rim here, near Tatooine, other planets like Trask, the moon we're visiting. These are trying times to patrol and police these states. Even the Empire didn't really touch those that often. The Empire kind of left things like Tatooine alone. They had occupation forces there, but it wasn't really a big thing going on over there. So eventually, the New Republic aren't really going to be able to achieve that in the right way. So it's something just to consider there. However, having the X-Wing pilots coming around was fantastic. Especially Dave Filoni as Trapper Wolf. And then we had Paul So-Young Lee as Captain Carson Teva. Great pair of X-Wing pilots. Hope we get to see them at some point. I love how they keep popping up as cameos. I'd love to see them again at some point. I will say, the whole sequence of the spiders, who didn't see that coming? When Baby Yoda, the child, was wandering around after the frog lady was taking a bath with her eggs practically, we saw him touching a thing, he's eating it, and he picked up a spider out of it. Immediately I recognised that's from Star Wars Rebels in a way, or similar to the species there, and I was like, oh god. This is not going to go well. And then you hear the roaring and they start breaking apart and the giant spider emerges from the cave there. I was like, I do not like this because I'm not a fan of spiders personally. I think many others out there, we're going to see a lot of social media posts about people not being a fan of spiders. And yeah, they ran away there. However, Mandalorian using his flamer, etc. and the blaster to get off there. And then, the spider also piercing the cockpit as well with its claws. Ultimately, the X-Wing pilots turn up to save the day. However, that whole sequence there, kind of horror in a way. People are describing Chapter 9 as a Western, Chapter 10 as a sci-fi horror. What's Chapter 11 going to be at the end of the day? Overall, this whole sequence, very interesting. It added a lot of tension and, acceleration to the plot of this episode itself. However, I was like, whoa, this is a bit too much for me. But it makes great content at the end of the day, and I think we all enjoyed it. And also, we've got to mention the fact, the child kept eating the eggs, even though the Mando was telling him no the whole time. That I felt a bit sorry for the frog lady for. She is literally called Frog Lady in the script and the episode credits here. Is he kept eating the eggs the whole time. Like, would you stop doing that? It's like, what are you doing? I think I may be criticised by saying this episode wasn't the best in my opinion, and I think some might agree with me, you might disagree with me. Do let me know down below in the video comment section below. At the end of the day, like I say, I feel like this episode was filler to a degree, but then again, like I said earlier, The Mandalorian is an episodic adventure. We've been spoiled of a plot in Chapter 9. Chapter 10 had to apply the brakes a little bit, so we then may get a dose of plot in Chapter 11. When you think about it, if we compare it to Season 1, Episode 1 gave us a big reveal of Baby Yoda. Episode 2 had the whole Jawa thing, which was interesting, but not that interesting to a degree. Some of us wanted to get straight into the action. Then Chapter 3 had the whole thing with him breaking out from a client and rescuing the child again, had the Mandalorians revealing themselves. That pacing could be very similar to how Season 2 is going to be paced. Ultimately, I can revisit this opinion of mine next week when we approach Chapter 11 and we get to this other planet most likely, and we possibly are going to see Sasha Banks next episode if this all aligns. Maybe she's Sabine Wren or another character. Hell, we might even meet Ahsoka or somebody else next episode. It's unknown as of yet. I just feel like, the pacing's off slightly, but it does make sense. What I'm saying is, I just personally found this episode wasn't the best in my opinion. But do let me know what you thought down below in the comment section, as I am interested as per usual. I think this kind of wraps up my review today. There isn't any many points else I can mention. There is a lot of Easter eggs and details in this episode alone. One thing I do need to mention is the activation of Q90, or just Zero, or Z as he was previously called. It was the one that was applied to the mercenary crew during the time when he went to a prison thing, which is Chapter 6, I believe. I think that was off the top of my head. Was it Chapter 6? I think it was, yeah. Roughly, it was Chapter 6 or maybe 8. Yes, it was chapter 6 of A Prisoner, and he went along with a crew there. Obviously, Richard Adelaide turned back to voice this one again, and it showed the frog lady was kind of smart in a way. She rewired the droid in a way. When she was looking at it, I thought for a minute she was fearing, oh my god, this is what he's done to droids. What's he going to do to me when referring to the Mandalorian? But ultimately, she rewired it. I was like, that's a bit weird in a way. And I thought with droid, she'd maybe rebuilt it, but it was just she activated the voice things there. It's kind of interesting at the end of the day, and does make sense, but yeah, I want to know what you take away from that, essentially. Okay everyone, that's going to wrap up my review on The Mandalorian Chapter 10 for today. Next we'll be back with Chapter 11 with a more structured review as well. That's obviously debuting on November 13th, 2020, and hopefully we'll have a bit more to look forward to in an episode. Overall, I think if I had to sum it up, this episode was really enjoyable, particularly with gunslinger moments and sort of sci-fi horror elements, and particularly the lore of like the Frog Lady as well, and how this is going to tie into it. It's definitely being used as an episode to get Mando from point 1 to point B. He's in search of more Mandalorians, apparently her husband's seen it, so therefore that's why he's going with her essentially. Ultimately, Chapter 11 will give us a bit more detail and a bit more of that juicy plot, the overall arcing story, which I think all of us are seeking right now. Hopefully Boba Fett shows up at some point, or maybe Ahsoka next episode, I don't know. We've all got these things to look forward to for Mandalorian, and I think we just can't wait with our excitement until it actually shows up. But apparently, Ahsoka is meant to show up in Chapter 5 of Season 2, so we're going to have to wait until then. Anyway, for now, I've been Captain Jack here on Star Wars Now. Of course, if you want to subscribe, then make sure to hit that button down below to keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news, lore, and more. We'll be back next week with more Star Wars videos, and also, of course, this weekend, discussing elements of Chapter 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. May the Force be with you.